Hello, it's Scott Manley here with episode 20 of Interstellar Quest. We are going back to space in space planes. This is the Zardoz II, a worthy successor built with far more sensibility in mind. Its centre of mass does not move nearly as much because we have placed the fuel tanks around the exterior. You see, we do have a few solid rocket boosters to help it get off the pad, but those are short burn. They will get ditched in a moment. You see there's little wings on it. The problem with this is you want to make sure your centre of mass is consistent the whole time. A lot of people were saying, hey, why don't you just stick, your Zardoz space shuttle on top of a rocket? And the smart people instantly said, because that would mean the centre of lift is in front of the centre of mass and the whole thing would be unstable. No, by strapping things to the side rather than underneath, we end up with a space vehicle which actually flies and doesn't flip out as soon as you get any speed at all. If you really want to build like a shuttle on top of a shuttle, then a shuttle on top of a rocket, then the rocket needs giant wings to keep stable. So that's why that happens. Yeah, anyway, heading up into the skies. And old me is, started talking about, we must have started talking about that beautiful eclipse there. Yes, a beautiful lunar eclipse. So yeah, the shuttle that we've got here, as I said, it feeds all 4 tanks into the interior. There are parachutes on those. We're intending to recover them, although I don't fancy their chances. To be honest, because there's no heat shields or anything on it, obviously, to save mass. If we don't recover them, that'll be fine. I don't care. I'm not particularly attached to them. Well, I'm attached to them by decouplers, but if I really wanted to remain attached to them, then I wouldn't use decouplers. I would use structural members that wouldn't break off when I got bored of their incessant yapping and discussion of things that I wasn't interested in talking about, like why they're running out of fuel. Yes, looking at the interior. Yeah, the whole thing flies a lot better this way. If you're really trying to get into building space shuttles, this is a style that makes a lot of sense. Just have these attached to the upper and lower wings, feed the fuel into the interior and see if you can fly that. Now, this still uses the model of having the main engines on the main fuselage, but the actual orbital injection, once we ditch those tanks, will be taking place using reaction control thrusters. Now, some people dislike this because the space shuttle has a separate OMS and RCS, but both of those use the same fuel type. They both use dinitrogen tetroxide and UDMH, so they're practically the same thing. And the fuel type is distinct from the hydrogen-oxygen mixed used by the space shuttle main engines. And we're coming up on orbital injection time, ready to start that main engine burn, the final main engine burn before those fuel tanks are discarded back to the atmosphere. There we go, just a little. So periaps height is 22. So what I've got here, I think, is I need to do a plane correction, which I should have really been keeping track of. We're trying to rendezvous with the space station, so we want to get into the same orbital plane as it. So what I'm going to do is turn sideways and use the fuel that's left from the main engines to try and correct my plane as much as possible so I don't end up wasting all my RCS. Because if we can burn fuel that's left in those tanks and then still ditch them back to the surface, then that will be more efficient, right? So here we go. I should have probably thought about this before I actually started my orbital insertion burn. There's my relative inclination decreasing slowly, and not very much. But hey, we got free fuel. So now we can say farewell to these tanks. They have served us so well, but now they will be cast off to return to the planet from whence they came, and hopefully not land on anyone's heads. Okay, so RCS time, we're going to finish lifting our periaps, so that we do not fall back into the atmosphere. The space station is up at about 130 kilometers, incidentally. Okay, phase angle means this. Where is the space station? I'll have to figure this out anyway. Flight engineer seems to work pretty well right now for a lot of things, but I can never be bothered reading all their numbers. I prefer looking back at the map. Yes, I know, I should be a man of numbers and learn these things. Okay, main engines are orbital injections engines firing. Yes, and of course this is a long and tedious problem because you only have the small RCS thrusters pushing you along. That means the injection into space takes some amount of time. Ignore my maneuver node, my maneuver countdown, because that is talking about a maneuver node that I was too lazy to actually remove. I know exactly where I need to be, and I'm gonna get there. And we're in orbit. Okay. Oh, excellent. So now we just need to trim this orbit to make it as circular as possible. We no longer run the risk of falling back into the atmosphere. Now it is a question of actively working to correct this orbit so that it's circularized. We can start deploying the cargo bay here and see the cargo that... Oh, what a beautiful shot that is. Look at that. The illuminated cargo bay, the sun rising over the edge of Kerbal. This is truly a sight to behold. It's a shame the pilots can't see it because they're in that cockpit there. Now, you probably can't tell, but we have two different payloads in here. One is a life support module, which we'll be adding to experiment with life support recycling. The second is a space tug, which we will try to use to help with space station assembly. They're both kind of strutted together right now, but as soon as I undock one, the struts will go away, and we'll be able to fold this whole thing out. The whole thing is on an actuator, on a hinge, so I can actually fold it out and dock it. But we'll see that once we get there. This is just a whole lot of time filling in and trying to synchronize the orbits here. Now, I'm not going to bore you by making you watch the entire rendezvous, but pretty much I end up in a slightly lower orbit, I guess. So what I'm trying to do is I go in a lower orbit and I just catch up slowly over a few orbits. And as I get close enough, once I get within one orbit of catching up, that's when you perform essentially a transfer to the other orbit. And there's a whole lot of trimming going on. Now, I'm using RCS to do the trimming, so I don't want to do the usual come within 2.5 kilometers and then slow down and stop and then thrust in one bit at a time. That's why I keep using the map. I keep using the map projections to actually figure out, to trim my orbit. And you got to make sure you use all three vectors to try to get your encounter to within about 0.1 kilometer. Good no God, 0.1 AU encounter would be terrible. Would be like beyond Joule practically. There we go. So coming in now, about 2 kilometers out, and this orbit I think will bring me within 1 kilometer. So back to old me again. There we have. There's the space station. So, what we need to do before this one arrives, and it is arriving imminently, you can see it there approaching, we need to move our crew capsule onto another docking node because I want the life support module to be attached here. And I don't want it to be attached on the other side because, I don't know, I want the crew capsule to go there right now. That's what I'm saying. I think actually I'm worried that giant antenna will... poke the spacecraft. So this happens on occasion to the space station. If you remember, they recently moved a Progress cargo shuttle from one docking adapter to another because they were expecting a second crew capsule coming up very quickly. So there was a bit of a traffic jam at the space station. So we'll just slide this over quickly. And we'll of course do it 4 times acceleration, so that it's faster than you actually have to worry about. Don't worry, this is all just slow ballet in space, and we all know that ballet can get very boring. So, as beautiful as it is, it's actually sometimes more watchable at 4 times normal speed. I tell you, look at that. We only have one crew and one pilot in here. Of course, the rest are in the space station itself. Coming in there very slowly. Look, I got all my nodes and everything aligned. Look at that. Look at that dot. Look at that. That docking UI, it looks brilliant, eh? It's very nice as well. I like the navigation lights, the green and the red, although those might be upside down. I'm not really an expert on marine and plane navigation. Someone will tell me that they're right or wrong. But in space, there's no up and down, so that gets very confusing. The space shuttle, of course, does not carry navigation lights, and for that reason, the federal aviation people, they have to call for basically the airspace to be cleared because they would have an aircraft coming through with no navigation lights on it, and that could cause problems if it hit an airliner. Not that it would happen, but I guess it requires the aviation laws require that they clear the airspace for flights of that nature. Okay, so this is just again 4 times normal speed as we start to rendezvous here. We're going to come in very close. We want to come in as close as possible and then park the spacecraft there. So I think what we're going to do is we've got two parts, but we got to figure out exactly how we're going to do this. But yeah, it's just a standard RCS parking maneuver. We're mostly firing forwards. Of course, there's no reason for us to be firing forwards. We could be using any of the RCS thrusters to actually control our input. And yeah, as somebody pointed out, the regular crew cabin does actually have RCS on it, so it helps it turning. It doesn't have thrusters to let it fire forwards, but it will let it fire in reverse. Okay, now we're coming in just over the target, and we're actually below it, so we can actually thrust upwards. Of course, using the vertical thrusters on this, so we can translate around the target until we're in the right place to actually deliver this. Oh, look at the shadow on the space station itself. I hope that doesn't freak them out. Okay, so we're shading their solar panels, and they're probably getting all worried about that. But let's return to normal speed for the docking. Okay, we're ready to undock or deploy our little space tug here, which will assist us. We're going to undock it from there and the struts will disappear. Oh, but wait a second. No, we can't do that because we need to make sure we have our transmitter deployed. Now, we have an omnidirectional transmitter, and this will relay instructions to the space probe. We've got to make sure that when we deploy it, that we have a communications relay set up within 3 kilometers. Come on, there we go. Because the probe itself has antenna and stuff, we just got to make sure this works. Okay, so undock. Oh, and it immediately redocks. It's like, well, I should have expected that actually. Undocks and oh, yeah, no. Let's turn this out. Turn this out. Out. Yeah, I kind of should have expected that, but there we go. The whole thing wobbles around a bit, and there is our little tug on the end. Now we got to get rid of that tug. We don't want to have it docked into the structure of the space station. I mean, I guess we could just deploy the whole thing and have the tug try to put it in place, but I actually want to try docking this space shuttle. Okay, so the space tug is away. It is a very minimalist version here. What do we have? We have all the probes, and I need to turn this thing around. Okay, that's controlling from here, so we got to point it. And for some reason, SAS isn't working. Oh, wait. That was a bad idea. That was a really bad idea because I don't have SAS on this anywhere because the probes don't come with that built in. See, I made the probe really, really short so it would fit in. Oh man, this is going to be impossible to control. I made the probe shorter by leaving out the SAS module. So it's just now floating around and won't point out. But maybe RCS? No, if we point it. Okay, so the other problem is my RCS is not activating. I'm hitting R, and RCS refuses to activate. I thought at least if I could get it on the station, then maybe I could get something. But no RCS either. Awesome. So this thing is dead in space. It has fuel. The RCS button doesn't come on. I may have... Yeah, I don't know. What is going on there? Yeah, I think we're just going to have to abandon this thing because nothing seems to want to work here. There's clearly a software failure in this space probe, and it will have to be returned to the planet Kerbal for further investigation. Time, as long as it's going to float away from the spaceship, we'll be fine. We'll dock the rest. Where is it? Yeah, it's flying. I think it's flying away from where we need it to be, so we can just forget about it. Assuming it doesn't come down and crash into the space station. Look at that. Sliding away. It won't fall to Earth, or won't fall to Kerbal, because it doesn't have enough velocity change. It hasn't been given a big enough kick. Okay. So back to new me for docking. So yeah, docking is of course a slow and sedate process, which we've seen a million times. Now, funnily enough, this thing works perfectly well. Those hinges, you can assign the control from here to the docking node on that arm, on that hinge, and everything translates correctly. I have to say, props to the developers of everything here, because this spacecraft flies with the correct translation and the correct thrusters fire when I'm trying to fly it from the point of view of this module which I'm trying to drop on there. It also has a docking adapter, you'll notice. There's a bunch of docking nodes on there, so that will help us perhaps bring up some new hardware and stuff. But the main thing is there's a few layers of life support, oxygen converters and scrubbers and water purifiers and all that. Okay, we're getting in almost close enough here. We can see that the docking node is just following. We're just following the docking UI incorrectly. Look at that. That is beautiful, huh? I never actually watched the space shuttle. You can never see this from outside in the space shuttle, like, because they would never send cameras out to view this stuff. It's a shame they never invented like the autonomous camera drone for this kind of thing, because it would have been very nice to watch this kind of thing on the space station. There we go, and docked. Look at that. Does that not look beautiful? Space station with a new piece of hardware being delivered by the shuttle. Look at that. I mean, it's nice. I had to lengthen the cargo bay a little really to make this work, but I really at this point I'm looking to upgrade to the larger cargo bays so I can build larger objects, because this cargo bay is only so wide and it's hard to fit all that stuff in there. Okay, so more transformation and stuff. This is basically housekeeping. We're gonna transfer some fuel and food and water over. We're transferring all the food. We cannot recycle food at this time, so we're taking food from the shuttle and sending that to the station. Another thing about the food is you can survive a few days without food, but without water and oxygen, then you die a lot. The Kerbals will die a lot quicker. So yeah, I'm taking all the food from the shuttle and transferring it to the space station, and then we'll return to Earth because return to Kerbin. Also, I think it's time we should transfer one of the crew just to demonstrate that this can actually work as a crew taxi. Okay, eeny, meeny, miny, Sonsen. Sonsen Kerman, you are Mo, or whatever. You're going to be getting over to the space station using your EVA because we still don't have the ability to transfer Kerbals around interiors. Would be nice, but EVA is the way to go. I haven't had any trouble with the new EVA system in the new KSP, but I'm sure it will hit us at some point. Okay, just gently fly up to the crew can. These guys have been in this can doing experiments or whatever, trying not to go mad. Maybe they're playing like board games or something. Board games in space. What kind of board games would work best in space? I don't see chess working, but well, I guess you could have magnetic travel chess. Okay, Sidzi, you are the new shuttle co-pilot. Hello, meet Zardoz. No, it's not like the movie. It's like a giant space plane with bigger wings and wingtips that have control surfaces and stuff on it. There's no like hidden wings on this one anymore. It all flies on its own. So therefore, it's a slightly more impressive achievement, I would say. Actually, I think it has better glide characteristics than the other one. It also has working air brakes because I finally mapped the air brakes in the vehicle assembly building. Okay, I think we're ready to go. Let's undock because we can't afford to wait around. We have to go and chase down that space tug which is floating away, carrying itself off into infinity, and I don't know. I don't know what it's playing at, but we will pick it up and we will find out. We will ask what it thought it was doing. That will be, well, look at that sliding away from the station. We should totally get some views of that. It must look very nice. I love the lighting on this. I love the fact that we have like a legitimate reason to have lighting in the cargo bay so we can see all that. It really helps to be able to see what's going on. Nah, that's not so cool. But it is realistic. Hi, Lucky. Yeah, that's Lucky running past, making lots of noise with his jingle jangle stuff. And we'll just pull the camera back to get a better view of these spacecraft against their home planet, and more specifically to look for the target that we're going to have to pluck from the sky and return to the labs back home. And there it is. It's about 150 meters away, and you see it's actually starting to it's moving away faster and faster as time goes on. There's a space station sitting above us. Look at that. Rather pretty to behold. The space station in all its serene glory sitting above its home planet, sending, I don't know, science and information home. Here's my nav ball here. We gotta align everything so we're pointing the right way. We want to point the nav ball we want to point the thing at the target. We'll slide in using the main forward engines because those are more powerful. So this thing will appear to accelerate away. That's just the nature of being on two separate orbits. Initially, for the first half orbit or so, you'll definitely appear to accelerate away from the object. And it can last longer than that. But funny thing is, even though it appears to accelerate for a long time, if they eventually do come back and collide, then they will probably come back at the same point they departed, and therefore the same velocity. So it won't be a piece of space debris that will fly back and smash into the space station. At worst, it will bump slowly up against the space station, and you say, "Hi, I'm home." Yeah, so sliding forwards here now. The Life Support Pro, it says Shuttle Life Support Pro, but I'm getting kind of annoyed about changing the names all the time. Shuttle is the Zardoz, even no matter what the game thinks it is. 4 times normal speed, picking this thing up, plucking it from space. Not that it was going to go anywhere. We just want to bring it back home so that it's not going to be a threat. So while we're here, we'll send out one of our pilots out to actually investigate the hardware and see if there's anything obviously wrong with it. Okay, I mean, this is just an excuse for some story time. Maybe they suspect sabotage. Maybe it has some special experimental technology from Hangar 18 project. Who knows? Am I telling you? No, because I'm making this stuff up right now. I had not expected to have a space probe fail on me. So that's just the nature of storytelling. Yes, must have some sort of special technology on board that they were... Maybe they were putting alien technology into their drone. Maybe they were putting technology from the other space station, space project, into their space tug for no apparent reason. Well, okay, so deorbiting is pretty much the same deal as before. We used the RCS, etc. And your re-entry is pretty much the same deal as before as well. You got to do the S curves to try and slow yourself down. And here we are coming in over the space center. We're actually quite high up and we have a lot of energy. So we're probably going to be able to do a full, we're probably going to be able to do a proper landing. Normally, see the space shuttle, it flies over and then turns around and comes back because you want to arrive at your landing point with excess energy. If you can always get rid of excess energy in a glider, you can't necessarily pick energy back up. So overshooting this is actually okay, especially when you consider that if you overshoot, you have a second runway out there. Although this thing may not be able to glide the distance, you have one chance to make this right. Even with the RCS firing, it doesn't have a huge amount of thrust, so it can't maintain level flight. One other problem with this in testing is that those wingtips are the things that get very hot, and if those wingtips get very hot, I think what happens is they can seize up and stop working, and you'll end up with a spacecraft that just flips around like crazy and is uncontrollable. So you have to be very careful with your re-entry in this case. It has 4-wheel landing gear, it has air brakes. There's us flying over the outside. Flying this with keyboard, not the best way, but it is not stalling. Watching that stall indicator very carefully. Now I'm just going to be going down in a rather steep spiral. This is probably like a 30-degree dive, which means we're falling pretty rapidly. I think actually we might actually be falling faster than Kerbal's fall without parachutes, but I don't know. Just guesstimating. We're certainly moving faster, although we're moving sideways. Ferrum Aerospace does also provide lift through the fuselage. You'll notice that there is a lifting body effect. Even if things have no wings, you can actually fly them to a certain extent in Ferrum. I should probably, I'd like to demonstrate that, see if I could build an actual lifting body style aircraft. Okay, coming around for final approach here. We're out over the water. We do not want to lose it at this point because that water means death. There's the runway. Getting lined up here. Still no stalling. We are going nice and fast. So I'm going to come down and then I'm going to hopefully flatten out the descent and glide. And the flaring will slow me down. I've not quite lined up as well as I would like, but this thing has pretty good yaw authority with those 2 tailplane. Undercarriage out. We have 4 sets of landing gear this time. It should hopefully deal with the problems we've had on landing in the past. There we go. Also, you'll notice that the engines are all collected inside a cowling there, and the reason is we don't want to have them bang into the ground. Okay, flare, 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 air brakes, and down. Excellent. Mission accomplished. So that was the maiden voyage of the shuttle Zardoz II. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.